Hey, what's up, everybody? This is your boy Kenny, and this is Greenleaf Season 2, Episode 11, and the name of this episode is Changing Season. This was a really interesting episode, y'all, so let me get started. The episode opens up, we see that Lady May and Grace are eating breakfast, and pretty much to start things off, Darius has written the article that Grace gave him about her killing Uncle Mac, Memphis Man of the Year. But they did put in the headlines that it was self-defense. So, of course, Lady May lets it known that, her disdain of Darius. But she says that, well, if this is, the article is going to set things straight, then so be it. Then we come to find out that that the St. Josephine Society, they hold an annual cotillion, and throughout history, all the Greenleaf girls have been selected as debutantes to be a part of this cotillion, but this year Sophia and Zora were both rejected. And both, Sophia and Zola were saddened by it because, this is like a family tradition, they're, pretty much as far as the whole Greenleaf family, I mean, all of the sisters, were cotillions. I mean, that includes Grace, Faith, as well as Charity. So, they're really, they're pretty much, they really want to be a part of this, and they definitely want to be, representing, the family. So Lady May is definitely not feeling this, and she decides that she's going to talk to Miss Jacinta Butler, who's pretty much the president of St. Josephine Society. So she's like, I'm going to go talk to her and see if we can get this, situation, all together. But Grace feels bad because she thinks that the reason why Sophia didn't get in was because of her. And, Lady May's letting her know, no, it's not you. Don't, first of all, the article plainly states that it was self-defense. So you shouldn't beat up yourself, as to why, Sophia didn't get in. So we see that's going on. So we see that Lady May tells her head housekeeper to go and get this box, and she said, be careful with it. She's like, oh, what's in it? She's like, a gun. And we see that it's like this old-fashioned gun, like it's a collectible, and she actually presents this to Jacinta or whatever, and as somewhat of a bargaining chip to try to get Zora and Sophia to be a part of the cotillion. And they even show the scene between Clarissa and Zora's even also upset because Zora was really looking forward to being a part of the cotillion because it's like a big thing in their family. And the fact that, they didn't get in, we can definitely see that it's affecting Zora as well as Sophia. So pretty much, we see that Lady May looks into, while she's in Jacinta's office, she kind of looks in the book and actually sees Charity when she was a debutante at the cotillion, and pretty much Jacinta's like, look, as far as I know, we never even received their admissions. As far as, them being even nominated to be a part of the debutante ball. And, Lady May's like, I sent an email, months ago. So, who's in charge of that? And she lets her know the person who's in charge of overseeing, all of the nominations is Tasha Skanks, Bishop Skanks' wife. So, they have a moment. It was a moment of all shade, pretty much, Lady May lets him know, like, you're doing this deliberately because your husband has something against my husband, but then he also got something against my whole entire family. So I think you personally made sure that you sabotaged, Sophia and Zora for being a part of this cotillion because you got a personal beef with our family. And Tasha's like, look, first of all, I never got their admissions. I never got anything. She's like, I sent the email months ago, and I know I sent it to you. So, I'm gonna pull up that email, and when I pull up that email, and when it proves that you sent it to you, oh yeah, I'm gonna have your head when I'm done with it. Because at the end of the day, you playing with fire. But we can see that Tasha ain't no pushover, because Tasha was literally giving it to Lady May. Because at one point, she was like, I'm going to be a lady about this. Get up out my office. I was like, ooh, okay, Tasha. You bucking back at Lady May. And we saw that go down. But then, we find out later on, what ended up happening was that, yes, Lady May did send the email, about Zora and Sophia being nominated to be debutantes at the cotillion. But she sent it to the wrong address. She should have sent it to .org, but yet she sent it to .com. So Tasha began to read her rights, like, she's like, well, since it's an error that I did, I can just talk to the director. And she's like, excuse me? The director is more PO'd with you than I am. Because after you left after you left my office the other day, after you came in here and you blatantly disrespected me and pretty much acted like an entitled white woman, I let her know about it. And trust me, I'm not fully on the board yet, but when I am, I will see to it that, pretty much you will never grace the cotillion ever again. Like, you'll be done once I move up. So I was like, ooh. So we now seeing that the first ladies are now going at it. Because we saw, we definitely know that, Bishop Greenleaf and Bishop Skanks definitely are clashing. But now we're seeing, First Lady Skanks and Lady May clashing. So that was everything. Also, what happened in this episode, Grace, along with Bishop Greenleaf, they pretty much are going to triumph for this community meeting amongst, the church community. Talking about issues and, and also certain things involving the churches. So we see that also Jacob's there because Jacob owns a plot, but Jacob is still preaching across the street from Calvary. So he still has his thing, and actually Jacob is one of the presiders of the meeting. So we see that, and then the thing is, Bishop Skanks is late, and Bishop Skanks comes in there late and over the top as usual. I was just cracking up. I was like, Bishop Skanks is just a character. He don't know what to do with himself. And we pretty much see, they pretty much start the meeting. And one of the issues that begins to stir up in this meeting is this issue with homophobia. Now, this all came about because there was a 16-year-old boy who actually was a member of one of the churches and one of the churches within their union, and the young boy actually attempted suicide. By, I think, like, he had locked himself in a garage and, turned on the ignition and inhaled all the fumes. So he's pretty much suffered from partial brain damage from this effect. He didn't die, but he almost did. And they come to find out that the reason why he attempted suicide was because he's gay, and he feared the big fear that, he's not going to be accepted by the church or his church family due to his sexual preference. And pretty much, you know, this definitely strikes a chord with Grace, because we definitely remember this is an issue that they dealt with in Greenleaf involving Carlton. And oh yes, I'm so happy because my boy Carlton comes back, but I'm going to get to him. So Grace brings up the question, and we see that Bishop Skanks actually elaborates on what she said, and saying that, you know, sometimes people think they're hearing God, but they're hearing the devil, but at the end of the day, God is all about love, and he's all about inclusion, and that's what we should be about. So then we see later on she meets up with Bishop Skanks to say that, yeah, you should lead the charge about, you know, saying that, you know, the churches need to ban homophobia, and that homophobia is not a Christian act. And he was pretty much Bishop Skanks was like, yeah, you know, I do have a big mouth and I do like to speak my mind, but then, you know, we actually see that in some aspect Bishop Skanks and Lady May, Bishop Skanks and Gigi are someone seeing eye to eye on the issue. That you know, we should stop homophobia within the church, because at the end of the day, God is about accepting everybody, and that God loves everyone. So we see that went down. Then, you know, as far as Charity is trying to write some music for Jabari. You know, and Jabari's supposed to be in town in a few days. She's been having some struggles getting like the right song. So her assistant pretty much mentions Carlton. Maybe you should reach out to Carlton. I mean, because you even said yourself, this, you know, the choir hasn't been the same since he left. So she calls up Carlton, and Carlton's like, oh wow. And he's like, oh, is this Miss Charity? This is Miss Charity Greenleaf? Oh, dang, girl, I'm surprised. I haven't heard from you in a long time. You know, what's going on? And she pretty much, you know, invites him in. You know, once Carlton comes in, Carlton is not playing with Miss Charity, y'all. He is not playing with her at all, because he lets it be known, I'm bothered. Because you can see when he first came in, he kind of was hesitant, but then he went in anyway. Because he's like, no, we need to address this. And she's like, you know, and he's like, you know, hey girl, how you doing? I'm happy you called. And she's like, well, you didn't sound too happy that I called. She's like, oh yeah, I know. And I'm going to get to that. But then again, I am happy you called. And she's like, so what's going on? What you mean? She's like, well, I really need your help. And he's like, oh, that's real funny. You need my help, but when I needed help, you would know where to be found. And she's like, look, I was busy. And she's like, oh, you were busy. You were too busy to actually hold down your friend, you know, and actually be there for your friend when you, you know, when I really needed you. And she finally breaks down and lets him know, no, I was busy getting a divorce. And she opens up about Kevin being gay, and that Kevin is now MIA. Nobody knows where Kevin is. And she also talks about that we didn't even grieve the loss of my daughter. And she was like, oh, Eden. You know, and she's like, you remembered? He's like, of course I remember, girl. Like, you're my homie. Like, of course I remember that. And we see that Charity breaks down because she is still grieving the loss of her other twin, which was Eden. And we see that Carlton is there to embrace her, and you know, all is forgiven. But he says that, look, I understand you going through things, but when you're going through things, you bring your friends closer. You don't push your friends away, because it got to the point where I couldn't even get you on a two-way or anything. But we actually see that they actually came together, and I was so happy seeing my boy Parnell back on the show. So shout out to Parnell. You know, I was so happy to actually see him on the show, and I was just like, yes, they brought that Carlton. Because I love me some Carlton, because Carlton just had like this light about him, and he really brought out the best in Charity. But then also another thing that was going on is that, you know, Jabari was like sniffing at her heels, and she was just all about Jabari. So when it really came down to Jabari and Carlton, of course she picked Jabari. So we see that happen also. Also, another thing that went down is that we get to see Miss Rochelle again, played by the beautiful LaToya Luckett. The first time we see her, she's up in, you know, the bishop's office. She done made him pineapple upside down cake, and she's sitting on the desk, and he is enjoying the cake and just getting life from it. Next thing you know, we see Lady May walks in, you know, and pretty much she was going to talk to him about, you know, what she's been doing as far as getting Sophia and Zora, you know, into the cotillion. So she mentions it, and then, you know, she pretty much sees Rochelle sitting on his desk and feeding him pineapple upside down cake. Oh, you could have bought Lady May for a dime, a quarter, and a dollar, because she was not having it. She saw that. She's like, oh, I see what you doing, honey. You up in here single, and you up in here serving my man cake, and obviously you done got real comfortable up in his office. Oh, she peeped it all. And she was like, so pretty much she says that, yeah, I'm trying to get these girls, you know, into the cotillion, and I'm trying to make this happen. And then Rochelle was like, oh, but I know Miss Jacinta Butler, you know, I'm actually good friends with her. I mean, if I can do anything to help, I'll be more than happy to help you. And Lady May was like, it's too late. I think you've done enough. Oh, yeah, and Bishop, enjoy your pineapple upside down cake. And walked right out. I was like, ooh. Lady May was not having it at all. So after the aftermath between her and Tasha Skanks, when she realized she sent the wrong address, she lets the bishop know, call Miss Rochelle over and invite her for dinner. So now she's gonna try to smooth things up with her, because she knows that her and, you know, the director of the of St. Josephine Society, she knows that the two of them are real cool. So now she's like, okay, maybe I can put in a word with her, and she can help get us in the back door. So we pretty much what we see is that you know, they invite over to dinner. Jacob and Clarissa are there, and, you know, they're pretty much sitting at the table having a discussion. You know, they ask Rochelle questions about herself. She said that she went to this other church, and she ended up having cancer, and she ended up leaving the church because she felt that the pastor didn't reach out to her, and that he really didn't give her the moral support that she would have hoped for from her church family. And then, like, of course, it's like, oh, well, you know, at Greenleaf, you know, we definitely, you know, have a mission that helps with the sick, and also does constant outreach. So we don't leave no stone unturned. So she's like, oh yeah, I'm feeling that, and she's pretty much kind of bonding with everybody. But you know, we definitely see Lady May still got that eye on her. But she's like, I'm going to use her for what I need, and I want to get my granddaughters in this cotillion, so I'm going to play an angle to see if she can do something for me. We come to find out that her and Jacinta are actually very close friends. She's a client of hers, but, well, no, Jacinta is a client of Rochelle's, but they're also very close friends, because when she was going through her breast cancer, Jacinta was very supportive. So they became very tight. So she said that, yeah, I have no problem putting in the work for you guys. And she said that, you know, I need for you to, you know, let her know that I made, you know, somewhat of an error, as you would say. She said another word, but I'm going to say error. Like, I made an error, and I want that error to be ironed out. And we also saw on the dinner table, they were actually talking about this whole issue with homophobia and all that. So, of course, Bishop Greenleaf was not happy that Grace sat down with Skanks, because, you know, he can't stand Skanks. But she said that in the meeting he did make a point, you know, that, you know, God loves everybody, and that is what should be preached, and that is what should be shared. It should not be no longer this question of homophobia. And we definitely know there has been some homophobia up in Greenleaf, especially when it came to Carlton and how the way he was treated by, you know, by Uncle Mac as well as Lady May. And we definitely seen that Kevin went through it, you know, once Lady May found out about why, you know, Kevin and Charity were having problems in their marriage. So there is like some homophobia within the Greenleaf structure. Grace is calling it out, and the bishop, you know, the bishop I think sees where she's coming from, but then he's resistant because it's involving Skanks, and he don't want nothing to do with Skanks. So then Carissa, being the messy mouth that she is, decides to go for Gigi. Like, oh, Gigi, what do you mean? You know, yes, you know, God does love all, but God does not love sin, you know, and I think people are just kind of being very, passive when it comes down to the scripture. I mean, God does not like sin, and sin should not be accepted. And I'm like, Carissa, again, Lady May said that your power best resides in stillness. And I see why she says that, because every time you open your mouth, you do nothing but cause havoc. It's like every time she says something, it's always coming off, you know, either condescending, or it's coming off very disrespectful, or it's just coming completely left field, and everyone's looking at her like, girl, what is your problem? You know, she feels she always has to, you know, she always has to object herself in every situation. Like certain, like say for example, the last episode when the siblings were having a fight about Jacob preaching across the street from Calvary. That was a situation where Carissa should have shut up and let them siblings fight it out. But Carissa always has to involve herself when she should put it on mute. So, of course, her and Grace are going back and forth. But then she said, but then again, why are we even talking about this? I thought we were here to talk about Zora and the Cotillion. And she's like, yeah, you're right. It's about the kids. So Grace apologizes. And we see that later on that, you know, her rubbing elbows with Rochelle actually worked out. And Zora and Cotillion were pretty much in there. And the funny thing about it, though, and I don't want to miss this, you know, Carissa wants to talk about, oh, you know, God doesn't like sin and God is not accepting sin. Little do you know, honey, your daughter was literally up in the bed with little Ike Turner, throwing her legs in the air and clicking her heels like she just didn't care. You know, lost her virginity. And he was real smooth of how he did it, too. You know, we talked about this baby, and then we're still seeing, like, yeah, he's more and more inching his way into her to the point where he's going to have complete dominance over her. And you can already see from the last episode where he, you know, put money in Jacob's GoFundMe account, you know, in regards to, his mission and, you know, him building his church. So we see that going on. But then we also see that, you know, Zora actually tells Sophia, and Zora again is always saying something out her mouth that she shouldn't, and she gets that from her mother. She gets her sneakiness and her messiness from her dad, but she gets that mouth from Carissa. Because all of a sudden she says that, look, just because granddaddy dipped you in a tub of water doesn't mean you have the right to judge anybody. And I'm like, if you do not go sit your butt down, I was like, girl, you need to get slapped. Like, you are totally out of line. But then she said, but then she lets her know that her and Isaiah did it. And, you know, Sophia immediately was like, yes, sex! And later on we see that she actually talks to Roberto, you know, her boyfriend, Sophia. They Skype each other. And she says that, oh yeah, you know, my friend Sam has been asking about Zor. And Sophia's like, well, you know, I don't think that's going to work out. And he's like, well, okay, it's her loss. And it is, because, you know, the dude she rolling around with ain't crap. And he ain't going to do nothing but mess her up. And I think in time we're going to see that happen. But, you know, they start asking questions about sex. And she asks, have you had sex? And he says no. And so we see that the both of them are virgins. So the question is, where are they going to take their relationship? You know, because we know that, you know, Sophia has been on the upheaval of trying to live her life right, and she's now preaching for the little saints. She's doing her thing. So we're now seeing, okay, where is her relationship going to go between her and Roberto? So that's going to be interesting to see. But let's see, what else went down in this episode? Oh yes, and finally we see that Charity actually does this new song for Jabari. She plays the song, and she asks, so what do you think? He says, I think it's a hit. And the next thing you know, she leaned in and kissed him, and I was like, what? I'm like, okay, Charity. And you didn't know what his reaction was. You just saw he stopped and she stopped. And I'm like, whoa, what's going to go on here? But I guess, you know, we had already seen that now she has kind of made the first move, so to speak. The question is, how is Jabari going to play with it? You know, what's going to be his motive? You know, or what's going to be, you know, his response to what she did? Because from the way it ended, we don't know how he responded or what he's thinking. But I think, yeah, we definitely got that to look forward to. So I think that's all. But if I missed anything, put it down in the comments. I love to talk to you guys about it. But subscribe to my channel. Click that bell so you get notifications every time I drop a video. Like this video, comment on this video, and share this video. And I will be back with the next episode of Greenleaf. So until then, everybody, take care.